Welcome to SteamLUG Cast Season 4, Episode 7. We are recording this live on April the 1st, 2016. My name is David, and with me I have the April Fools, Cheese.
How you doing?
And Hero.
Hello.
So, what has everybody been playing? Starting with you, Hero.
I've been playing quite a bit of Payday 2.
You and everyone else.
Yes, as well as everyone else. As well as a little bit of the interactive adventures of Dog Mendoza and Pizza Boy.
How you finding that?
It's interesting. I don't play that many point-and-click adventure games, so I don't have a whole lot to compare it against.
It's got a lot of sort of the identity of the classic LucasArts games in it, in terms of sort of pacing and structure and puzzle design. Feels like very much a love letter to those sorts of things. Monkey Island 1 and 2 and 3 in particular.
So, what have you been playing, Cheese?
Not a huge amount. I've had some time for playing a little bit of Ark Survival Evolved, a tiny bit of Hand of Fate, and I played through the Day of the Tentacle re-release that recently came out but is not available for Linux yet.
About Hand of Fate, do you still have that dark screen issue?
No.
Did you actually at any point have that issue? Because it's plaguing me and preventing me from actually enjoying that game.
No, I didn't, but I have awareness of it. We can talk after the show and see what the status of it is, if you want.
Sure.
I think it's been fixed. What about you, Dorita? What have you been playing?
I have been playing tons of Dungeons of Dreadmore when I had nothing better to do while sitting on my butt for quite a couple of hours every day. And I got further than ever before in that game.
I still haven't played that yet. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
It's a right proper time vampire, I can tell you, if you actually manage to get anywhere.
Yeah, that's why I haven't touched it.
And I finally started getting really into Torchlight 2. When it first came out for Linux, I wasn't really feeling the groove, but now I'm feeling the groove and some funk to boot, and I'm enjoying it, and probably going to finish at least once with a character.
Yeah, nice.
And then, like everybody else, Payday 2. A lot of it. Have been stealing all the Easter Bunny's eggs over the Easter weekend.
I feel like Payday 2 is a very good middle ground, and that's why so many of us have been playing it so much.
It's been great to see a game sort of that well received. I don't think I've seen that many people in my friends list playing one game since
XCOM 2.
Well, not even XCOM 2.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. This Mumble server has not been quite that full in quite a while.
In a long time. Reminds me more of like when CSGO hit Linux and everyone was playing that.
Yeah, that is comparable. That is really comparable.
I would agree with that. So, for any of our listeners, if you ever want to play Payday 2, you can probably just hang out here in Mumble and you'll find somebody.
There's probably guaranteed to be someone in here from the European evening hours to the American evening hours.
Yeah, there are people always happy to play that game.
Moving on to SteamLUG community stuff. Past events, we had on the 18th of March Frozen Synapse, on the 19th Tabletop Simulator, on the 25th Arma 3, and on the 26th Natural Selection 2. Any of you attended any of these events?
Yes, I was at all of them.
So tell me about all of them.
Well, we'll start with Frozen Synapse. That was pretty nice. There was only a few of us, but we had a few games going, just a game with each person. We're switching between them, and it was fun. Different experience levels, but the games were still fairly even, and that's always exciting. Then going on to Tabletop Simulator, I believe we played Apples to Apples, followed by Uno for quite a while, and had a good group of people there as well. Arma 3 was not very populated, but that was fun too. We got to play with all the new updates. Well, one update, but lots of new features in that one update. It was a large jump. And finally, Natural Selection 2 was a little bit disappointing. Unfortunately, some people seem to have technical issues where the game would crash for them, which would constantly unbalance our games and was not so fun. But we'll try again later. It's odd because only certain people had the issues and it was very consistent for them, but not anybody else.
That's my story with Natural Selection. I, again, am having audio issues on my new Ubuntu 16.04 install, and I don't even want to bother finding it out because it's just not worth it. This game is constantly kicking you in the butt with all its many issues it has in the most inconsistent ways possible. Even though it's a super fun game if you actually get to play it.
Yeah, that's why it was so disappointing to me, is because I was really looking forward to this, and then so many people had issues, it just kind of brought it down.
As for upcoming events, today, after the cast, we have Daedalus. Tomorrow, we have Payday 2. On the 8th, we have Team Fortress 2, and on the 9th, we have Coffin Dodgers. Old people racing against death.
Hooray.
I just love the theme of that game.
Yeah, I hope the Daedalus event goes well. I've had my eye on that game, but haven't had a chance to pick it up yet.
What is that even?
It's a top-down shooter, sort of like an arena shooter, except in a top-down perspective. We actually had an event for this before, and it had a really good turnout.
Yeah, I see people likening it to sort of 2D Quake.
I think top-down Quake is a very good comparison.
And in other community stuff, Moshka made an Arma 3 launcher for Linux.
Yeah, so the official port does not have the launcher that is normally available on Windows, and while I normally don't like launchers, it allows you to toggle mods on and off. So here's a open source alternative, which is mostly just used to enable or disable mods, but it's convenient. I was looking through it and contributed a little bit.
Yeah, it's really cool. So thanks, Moshka, for doing that for us.
Indeed.
Or for everybody.
Indeed. What's the license on that?
GPL version 3?
Nice, full freedom ahead.
Indeed.
So, geez, you've been writing some stuff.
Yeah, this is the reason I haven't been playing a lot of games lately. A couple of days ago, I published an article looking at Adventure Jam. This is the longest article I've written in a while. It's probably approaching a cheese length, to use one of Hero's terms.
Yep.
And it looks at the origins and the games and the outcomes from an adventure game-oriented jam that happened last year. So I touch on, I have interviews with the organizers and a couple of the judges, and then dig into what tech people were using, how many of the games supported Linux and other macOS and Windows, and how that was broken down. And then I also look at which games had further development after the jam and stuff. It was it's really nice to just kind of go back and give a good recap on the first of what will hopefully be many events. And alongside that, I also released a little jam survival guide that's geared towards sort of giving people the right kind of mindset and making sure that they don't smash themselves on a game jam. So if you're thinking of participating in something, it's worth having a look through. So another thing that I recently released was an article on Dog Mendoza that I wrote a little while after it came out, which looks at because the game itself is based on this existing series of graphic novels, and so it has a little bit of sort of franchise history that some people might not be aware of. So I kind of dive into that and look at its background and origins. It was originally written as a film screenplay.
All of it or just the game?
The original graphic novel was originally written as a film script, but the Portuguese film industry sort of wasn't really big enough to support what the creator Filipe Melo was looking at doing, and after a bunch of kind of failed attempts to get funding for it, eventually settled on this idea of doing it as a graphic novel. And it's kind of interesting to sort of see the way that so continued passion allowed other doors to open, and for it to become, I guess, a modestly successful franchise. And then I also look at the history of Godot and Occam and how all that kind of ended up leading towards the Dog Mendoza game being a reality. So if anybody's interested in that, feel free to take a look. I try to keep it pretty spoiler free.
In Steam and Valve news, Valve has released the Steam controller CAD files for external parts under a Creative Commons license.
So this is not the internals, it has nothing to do with the board, but you're free to modify it and distribute it. You are not free to sell your creations. But along with this, they also released a couple example modifications. Both of them were a change to the plate on the back that covers the batteries and acts as the grip buttons that allows it to store the USB wireless receiver within that. That way you could carry the controller with the receiver to somebody's house, for example.
I think the restriction to not be able to sell them commercially is a bit stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, this is only useful to people that know somebody or have access to a 3D printer on their own then.
Right.
You can't even sell them in a way that would simply cover the cost for yourself if you're printing them for others. That means it's going to be a niche of a niche kind of deal.
Yeah, it's not going to build up a proper ecosystem, right?
They were saying that if you want to sell anything, you can talk to them, but that's it.
Yeah, because reaching somebody at Valve about anything is always so easy and fruitful.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that when they did release this stuff, that it would be geared towards allowing non-Valve devices to exist in the same way that there are non-Valve Steam machines, and there's a fair bit of diversity amongst the sort of things that they can and can't do, and allow the devices themselves to kind of build their own kind of marketplace and ecosystem. But it seems like that's not where they're going.
I mean, back in the day, the old Nokia cell phone that had exchangeable covers, that was a huge market. Everybody had one. I'm thinking about these things.
That's what you need to do.
This could have been true for the Steam controller, but not like this.
You need to make a faceplate that's transparent that you can print out your own little background for and slip it under. But either way, I guess it's not a bad thing to give the community this kind of detail, and I guess it's like a head start on like just personal modding of the device.
It's still a lot better, in my opinion, than never releasing it.
Yeah.
In tech news, AMD has released their beta Vulkan driver, and the most interesting part here is that it is not a Vulkan version of FGLRX, their Catalyst for Linux driver, but of their new AMD GPU Pro driver that sits on top of the open source drivers.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, this only basically brings the first version of that driver, mostly aimed to start getting Vulkan support in the hands of developers sitting on AMD hardware. But there will be further OpenGL improvements coming, and so far it hasn't performed that poorly in benchmarks, so this is definitely making me hopeful for the future of AMD on Linux in general.
Well, even this driver is still considered to be fairly early in development, but it's nice that they're releasing something that people can play with now.
It exists now, which means every
Yeah,
driver from now on is going to be a version of this driver. FGLRX is dead.
it's so much more than before.
This is it now.
Hooray!
Which means, even though this is proprietary, you still have a more free desktop if you use AMD hardware that supports this because of the open source framework under it. In the same vein, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I kind of imagine that that's going to lead AMD to contributing more to the open source driver as well down the track.
They've stated that that was their intention anyway.
Yeah, the slides they have released recently already said that a lot of the components that are still proprietary in this driver are hopefully going to be open sourced as well. Eventually their OpenGL support is going into the free driver, and their Vulkan support might be as well, and some other stuff. So yeah, it doesn't seem like it's meant to be like this forever.
And even with this driver, you're still using the open source kernel driver.
Right.
Along those lines, NVIDIA has finally released their stable driver versions 364.12, which also brings Vulkan support without any fancy beta drivers, GLVND by default, kernel mode settings, improvements to EGL to enable the driver to work on Wayland and Mir, even though at least the Wayland driver doesn't work without a patch provided by NVIDIA, because they're doing it in a way that the Wayland developers don't want to do it, and they just said, screw it, we want to do it this way.
Yeah.
EGL streams, go home if you use anything else.
Their implementation is different, so don't expect it to work with anything you have right now. You can patch Weston in order to try it out if you would like.
So is this stable? Because the website says it's a beta version.
Yeah, I think that it was meant to be beta, and they didn't properly mark it. But if the website says beta now, then yes, it is the beta version.
Yeah, okay. Alright, sweet.
But it's the actually useful beta version, which...
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is that now there's the Vulkan support included in a modern version of the driver, so it works with the latest X server and kernel versions.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's already packaged in the Ubuntu graphics driver PPA, and that's usually an indicator of, is this actually useful for the mainstream at all or not?
Yeah, it's a pretty big update though, and very nice to see. Another release by NVIDIA was kernel or driver version 361.42, which is part of the long-lived branch. This is not as massive of an update, just new cards and bug fixes.
It's been a big fortnight for driver updates, eh?
Definitely. So one staging 1.9.6 has been released, which includes Vulkan support. This is an initial beta implementation, and it passes all of the Kronos Vulkan conformance tests, at least all of those that the host system supports. Interestingly, they found that Vulkan on 64-bit operating systems is almost completely binary compatible, except for some differences in how it's called. 32-bit was a little bit more of a problem. That was actually why it took them so long to release this.
It'd be interesting to see some benchmarking of stuff that supports or has Vulkan support on Linux versus running it under Wine.
In addition, this release disables CSMT, so if you're relying on that patch set for making games playable for you, you probably shouldn't upgrade to this. They decided that it wasn't worth maintaining at the moment, as there have been a lot of changes with the upstreaming process.
So Ryan Gordon has been working on refreshing his or merging his original Serious Sam port with the source code drop that Crow Team recently did, and it looks like that process is just about finished.
Yeah, it's working, but as far as I know, it's still not mergeable.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the hurdles are there, but since we started recording, it looks like a CMake compile systems or build system's been added. So Ryan's still messing around with it.
Nice.
And there's also a bit of information and background on the port, looking at the work that went into it. That Iculus has popped up on his equivalent of a blog, along with a full list of commit messages from the original port dating back to 2001. So it's a nice little bit of history there that's worth checking out. It looks like the original port was in works for about a year. Looking at the full changelog there, I haven't had a chance to thoroughly read it yet, but it was something I was asking if he was willing to share. And then he was all, "Oh no, I got something better." So we've got, in addition to that commit history, we've got a more detailed rundown on what it all means.
It's also been quite hilarious following him on Twitter, as he's constantly saying, "Oh my god, why did I do this?"
Don't look at your old code, kids. It's gonna destroy you.
Right. Is he nearly 15 years old, right?
Right. In other engine news, FNA 1604 has been released by Ethan Lee, and it has a bunch of new fixes for something that I forgot what he was working on.
Packed vector namespace, I think.
Yeah, packed vector namespace and a bunch of work to make portability within FNA a lot nicer.
Hooray.
For example, he wrote about the IGL device, IAL device changes a couple of weeks ago, so I guess it's about these interfaces, which now work better.
Flibbit normally posts updates on where things are at on his Google Plus account, where you can have a bit of a read up on what he's been up to.
He's one of 5 people that still read good stuff on Google+.
So in general gaming news, it looks like someone's done an Arma 3 benchmark on Linux.
So this was specifically a comparison between SteamOS and Windows. It's basically confirmed what I thought I already knew, which was that in most cases, the experimental Linux port, still considered to be in beta, is sometimes better performing than the Windows version, depending on the scene. Overall, you could say that it's even. I think there are some cases where sometimes Windows outperforms, but generally Linux is ever so slightly faster.
Yeah, but keep in mind this benchmark was done with an i7 CPU, and the kind of porting that was done here is really heavy on your CPU, so you might not see this kind of performance parity on lower tier CPUs.
And even the game itself is very, very CPU bottlenecked. But it's still nice to see. Goes to show that the Eon wrapper that virtual programming uses can still get fairly good performance.
An expansion for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition has been released. It's called Siege of Dragonspear. And I don't know much about it except that it is not made by the original Baldur's Gate 2 or 1 devs, but by the people who currently own the license, I believe. So yeah, if you want more Baldur's Gate, which a lot of you probably want, this might be it.
It's always interesting when people who are, rather than original developers that write halters, make additional content. It's always interesting to see how faithful they remain to the original, and whether it kind of carries the spirit of the original, or whether it explores new ground. Kind of vaguely interested to see where this has gone. It looks like HyperLag Drifter has been released and has Linux support. I'm not sure if Linux support landed just now, or whether it previously had Linux support or not.
That was at launch, I thought.
Okay, yeah. I knew that when it was, that Linux support wasn't quite there before release.
Yeah, so this is a sort of action-adventure game with a nice pixel art style.
Yeah, there are a lot of people excited about this game. I am hoping to find time to check it out at some point. So we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but Payday 2 has had a free week, or a bit longer than a week, coinciding with the launch of Linux support.
It actually just stopped yesterday. Yesterday was the last day that you could play it for free. And of course, when they do that, there's also a big discount all the time. But as it's been available for everyone to play, and it's been so popular, we've been constantly playing it.
Oh, yes, indeed. Jeez, you're missing out. No, it's a surprisingly good port. I did not expect it to be what I would consider one of the best ports we had recently.
As far as we know, it's entirely in-house.
Yeah, it's their own engine they have been using for a while. This is an experienced studio, born out of an older experienced studio, and it seems like performance is dead on. It's the first port in ages that doesn't give me CPU bottlenecks. Somebody seems to have read the Asto NVIDIA slides.
Just gonna say I was considering downloading it, but with the lovely internet issues that I have at the moment, 25 gig is not justifiable.
Yeah, it's definitely a content-rich and heavy game on your hard drive for what it is. For not being like this epic single-player game. It has lots of content, lots of missions, a damn cool soundtrack, and it's just royally fun.
Yeah, the soundtrack is one of the things that surprised me. But it's, as I was saying before, it's just so easy for different, people who enjoy different types of shooters to get into.
And even though this has a ranking system and unlocks as you can easily drop in with a completely new player,
right.
The biggest hurdle there will be is them not having armor in the beginning, and that is done in like 3 missions.
Yeah, the levels don't make a huge difference as with some games. Like, for example, if you're playing Borderlands and somebody joins you with a low level, they're basically hiding in the back the whole time. But in this case, you can be useful pretty much any level. Though the higher difficulties you might not want to try unless if everybody's fairly up there.
And those sort of experience-based perks and upgrades and stuff isn't so bad generally in a co-op environment anyway. In a competitive environment, it kind of gives people who already know the game an even greater leap ahead of everybody else.
If this were a competitive game, the balance would not be quite as good. And as they're very well known for continually supporting this game for such a long time, since the launch of Linux support, they've already released a free expansion to everyone. Adds 2 new heists, and a new character and weapon, some other stuff.
But that's one of the things in general you have to negatively note about Payday 2. There's a ton of DLC, and right now there is no way to simply click a buy this game with all DLC button. Even if you buy the collector's GOTY thingy edition, it only gives you like half the paid for DLC. You have to then manually add all the DLC you're missing that is paid for.
Right, because it has all the DLC that was released at the point that they made the Game of the Year edition, but none of it after, which is still quite a bit.
Most of it, actually, it seems. Or at least half of it.
Yeah, the nice thing, though, about the way they handle the downloadable content is if I own a heist and you join me and you don't own the heist, you can still play it. As long as the host owns it, then anybody can play any heist. It's really just the weapons and a few other things that are fully restricted.
It seems like some of the DLC is also free and automatically included.
Yes, like the latest one.
Yeah, but that's been a lot of fun. I enjoy the teamworky elements and planning and stealth.
Having a stealth-only mission ruined by somebody bumping into a guard again, it's always that one person.
Yes, always. Sometimes it's me.
But you forgive him.
But this has an R18+ rating. I haven't seen that on Steam before.
What does it have?
I don't know if it's region specific, but it has an R rating.
Well, it's not that violent in its display, but it's all about stealing, killing corpses, taking hostages.
Yeah, you're a criminal, and that is definitely not for everyone.
I'm surprised it's actually rated in Germany with an 18 rating and not flat out indexed, but hey.
You'll take it.
Yeah, of course.
Sure are a lot of animal masks in this game.
There's a lot of masks in general.
Oh, I have this nice clown mask with a really big...
There is no such thing.
Oh, you don't like clowns?
It's not a real clown, it's just a mask.
Yeah, and he smiles so nicely.
Yeah.
From ear to ear, literally. So, apparently, Formula One 2015 accidentally slipped its ankle during the free weekend it recently had.
Yeah, so the private Linux beta was made available, and some people were able to download and play it before they noticed and fixed it all up. So thanks, Farrell.
Yeah, well, I hope those people enjoyed that.
I did too. From what I heard, the benchmark still wasn't working properly, and I think maybe it caused a crash, but besides that, it was working fairly well. So maybe we will see that sooner rather than later. Which again, this port is not all that surprising, but it's nice to have. Nice to eventually have.
Tomb Raider 2013 has recently been announced by Ferrell to be getting a Linux port, apparently in the very recent future. Even though they accidentally let a release date of today's slip that was, as I said, an accident and not true.
They quickly rectified that mistake and apologized, but in any case, it should be soon.
Yeah, they already had a live stream going for that game, and I guess they didn't have any technical issues on that live stream. Though that's a fairly highly ranked game, and it's probably nice to get. Like one of those single player experiences I will probably buy, play through in a few sittings, and be happy with.
And I think this would mark the second game for Linux on Steam by Square Enix when it's released.
Which one was the first again?
The
Hitman Go.
board game one, yeah.
Oh yeah, Hitman Go, right. But this one is to be taken a lot more seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a different caliber than a mobile-focused game that was on Unity anyway, which was easy to port.
Right.
Even though it's a very good game.
So it appears that the next Worms game, Worms WMD, is intended to have day one Linux support, which is...
That's a good step.
Yeah, it's quite a change from what they were doing previously. And while Clan Wars has fairly good support, it took them a little bit.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like the community had I don't know, wasn't quite as strong as it was around launch. So Linux users sort of didn't get to participate in the game while the community was at its strongest. I like that in that Twitter thread that we've linked to there, that someone's saying that the original Amiga version of Worms was the best. I kind of agree with that. I just like there's something special about the original.
I also had the original, not on Amiga though, on the PC, but I guess they were very much identical.
I think the music and audio was better in the Amiga version.
It couldn't be any other way, because the Amiga was just better in that regard in every respect compared to the PC, and not even slightly.
Yeah, I think the graphics are the same though. But yeah, wow, what a game.
But Worms of Mass Destruction though, took them that long to make that joke?
Yeah, well, maybe they felt it was too soon.
Since Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
I think more along the lines of since Iraq.
But they didn't have any, so whatever.
Yeah.
So, Punch Club has apparently sold 300,000 copies and pirated over 1 million times.
Yeah, that's big numbers there. They have a blog post that has a bunch of different stats regarding this information. Different platforms, graphs they correlate to when they had different translations, and so on.
It's an interesting ratio there, and it's interesting to see that they got more revenue from the platform that has been pirated more.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. I've personally made my decision to not pirate games anymore quite a long time ago. Basically, as soon as I started having a bit of money even.
Well, actually, Germany has the highest buyout rate of any region. So there you go, Drita. You're making a difference.
I didn't buy this game, and I don't know anyone here that has it.
But you didn't pirate it.
Yeah. But I guess could be related to some people actually falling here for the media scare campaign against torrents, that where they totally said, hey, you will get caught because torrents, they can see you're sharing, you're reseeding, and that's how they get you. Which is true for a couple of token cases, but, well, I am just taking this as a victory about how German people are apparently quite moral. Which I'm taking that back. I know better than that.
So I think it's worth kind of highlighting that 300,000 sales for a small indie game is pretty good, right?
Yeah, but this is not just a small indie game in that respect. It has received a lot of eyeballs through streamers and YouTubers, and it was a quite well-known game now, and, well, I just wish they could have had more buyers, a higher buyer to pirate ratio.
Okay. I don't know. I like it. We don't really have a lot of information on what these ratios normally look like, so it's hard to know whether this is a normal ratio or not.
Well, even if it is normal, I don't think that it should be.
But I found it interesting that actually adding languages increased piracy in the countries where this language was spoken. Like,
Yeah.
adding Brazilian Portuguese made Brazil the top pirated country. Like, wow, if you actually don't want to have some random people in a far-off country with a poor pirate your game, make it so they don't understand it? Is that the takeaway? That's a strange takeaway?
I wonder if it has something to do with the economic climate in that region.
They also don't seem to have touched on whether or not people they've identified as pirates have then gone on to purchase the game. Could be that a significant portion of that 300,000 is also included in the 1.6 million, which, while probably, even if you say all of them, it doesn't make a huge dent. It does adjust the ratios a bit. And that's, I don't know, to me, I don't see much value in pirating myself, but if it helps people discover and find a game that they like, then I don't see that as being a negative outcome if they end up going and buying it, or if
they
end
don't.
up convincing someone to go in and buy it.
It's mostly a myth.
Which happens.
It's mostly a myth, though. If it's not multiplayer and you actually need a key to be able to play online, people aren't buying it. I know it from the people I'm speaking to, some of which are aspiring to be game developers themselves, and I cannot make them see the irony in their behavior.
Yeah, if I'm ever playing a multiplayer game with friends and it's DRM free, I don't tell them that so that they don't know that they can pirate it.
All the friends I know who pirate games also go out and buy the ones that they like. I try to ask them why they bother spending time pirating games that they don't like, and they don't seem to have an answer, but they still do go out and buy the ones that they do like.
And that's why I also say, I mean, I have so many games I like I actually haven't played. Why would I pirate games at all? The ones I like I buy, and I don't get to play even most of those, so what the heck?
And even more so for Linux users. And off the top of my head, I don't think I know a single Linux user that pirates games anymore. But we should support the people that are bringing us games, right?
Yeah, but I believe we had somebody jump into the SteamLUG IRC asking for torrents once, like one person.
I'm sure they exist.
Yeah, I don't see many Linux users who are keen to pirate stuff. I see Linux users who are keen to pirate stuff out of spite, like when they don't like something that the developer has done. And again, I just go, well, why do you want to support them by increasing their player base? Just don't play the game.
Exactly.
Some stupid get off my lawn statement here. I think that's a bit of a never having to not get something attitude. Like, oh, I can have my principles, but I still get to eat the cake.
Yeah, I think that could be true.
It's a little bit weird. I don't really know how people kind of... I don't know if people who do this sort of thing even bother to think about what it is that they're doing. But yeah, I don't know how it's kind of rationalizable. Yeah, as a developer, I kind of feel like as long as I can survive and my needs are met, that it doesn't bother me if there are people out there who aren't paying for the future stuff that I release commercially. But if I'm not sustainable and I can't make ends meet, and that stuff is getting in the way of me being able to do that, then that would make me pretty sad.
Well, I'm more thinking about it like some force of nature you really cannot prevent. You are making the games for your paying customers, not for the pirates, in my opinion. It's like complaining about the rain piddling in your face. It just does that, and there's not much you can do about it except use an umbrella.
Yeah, the best thing you can focus on is giving your paying customers the best experience you can, because if they have a good experience, then they're more likely to recommend it to other people, right?
Yeah, I would not waste one breath on fighting pirates if I could instead take that to improve it for the paying customers.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's still really unfortunate to see how much, at least specifically, this game has been pirated.
But the only thing that helps here, at least against the ones which are just immorally pirating games, even though they have the money and could easily afford it, is a moral education, and those take time, and you cannot spite those people because then you have lost them forever.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got I mean, that's the other thing to consider is that even if you don't get a sale from it, sometimes an expanded player base is of value and enriches the experience that, particularly in multiplayer games, enriches the experience that your paying community has.
Yeah, but that leads straight to the free-to-play angle.
I was going to say, that's why the whole free-to-play thing exists at all.
Because adding more people to your player base is much more valuable than having every single one of those paid. Just having those is more valuable in the end, because the cost of entry are so low and stuff like that. Smarter people than me have formulated that smarter than me, so there's probably a dozen GDC talks on that topic. And the whales. Whaling is fun.
Well, that's how a lot of studios get by.
But moving on with other immoral behavior, Human Resource Machine has seen a Linux port released. Has any of you guys played it?
I have not played it. I kind of stopped paying attention when it didn't have Linux support before. So this is a surprise to me.
I've not either. But I do know that John Drinkwater has played it, as he was helping test the port.
Yeah, cool.
So for those that don't know, this is a sort of logic game similar to TIS 100. This is made by Tomorrow Corporation, which is who made World of Goo and
Little Inferno.
Little Inferno, right. And you can definitely see it in the art, and it fits with their style.
Now, World of Goo was made by 2D Boy, which I think is a separate company that shares a bunch of the same people, or something like that, or is a company that was dissolved and then Tomorrow Corporation came out of it.
Okay.
I don't know, but the only thing they are advertising on the page of Tomorrow Corporation is, yeah, we are a 3-person team. Here are our games so far. Little Inferno and Human Resource Machine, so it's not World of Goo.
Okay, well then, Little Inferno, but you can still definitely see that in the art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bug-eyed little creepy...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, looks like one of the World of Goo developers is with Tomorrow Corporation and the other is not. But yeah, there's a lineage there for sure.
And on an even darker theme, Darkest Dungeon now has a public Linux beta. You need to have the password, which is 1iHeartLinux1. This is being ported by Aaron Melcher of Knockout Games. So I know a lot of people have been excited for this. We've talked about it before, but here it is, available for playing.
Yeah, I haven't played this game. Have either of you?
Negative.
Then let us say that it is amazing and move on.
Oh yes.
Oh, it's got a third-party EULA. That makes it less amazing. Oh, at least it's not a big one.
Wasn't there a game on Steam recently where the EULA was just a shrug emoticon?
Not even just recently. There's been quite a few games. Can't remember. I think I have a... There's a game somewhere that just says, there's no EULA, just play the game.
Oh, in other news that I guess we didn't have down here, Valve has been found guilty of breaching Australian consumer law.
Does that mean they get the boot?
I think it probably means that we'll probably see, in the same way that New Zealand and the EU has like just specific stuff that goes around the whole your sales take place in Washington thing.
Yeah, that was just a matter of time.
But yeah, hopefully now that that's all wrapped up, they can get around to making the hardware and things available in Australia.
But it's so unfair to them. They always sell their games in Australia at such a cheap price point.
Yeah.
People have been getting shipping confirmations for the Vive in Australia, but that's HTC.
Yes, that's true. I can confirm that. And it's funny, my shipping confirmation for the Vive arrived the same day as my shipping confirmation for the Rift. So I got up and had a very VR morning.
Exciting. I've had a very VR last 2 days. Lots of daydreaming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting times are ahead. I think like the biggest hurdle right now is making sure that people who aren't in a position to have a good experience this early in the kind of lineage of VR, that they're like getting those people to hold off until VR is ready to meet their expectations. I think that's going to be pretty hard. And there are probably going to be a lot of people who are put off early because, it hasn't had, the kind of industry hasn't had time to mature. And we don't even have kind of definitive VR experiences yet, and that stuff's not going to come for a couple of years, I don't think.
I think that the price points are making it really easy for those people to hold off buying.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, I know people who are picking it up too early.
Well, I agree. I think that a lot of people who could be put off are not because they're waiting anyway. The price is too high for them at the moment. And there's so many people that aren't even considering it.
That's true as well. But there's so much media hype about it, and the media's not treating it as a kind of a baby thing. That it is. It's like, yeah, stuff's consumer ready, and then complaining about it not being amazing. And it's like, well, it's early days. You gotta have slow growth on this stuff before you have like big momentum. So kind of worry a little bit about that as well.
Even if we had a definitive experience, the hardware, while some of it is quite solid, the tracking and so on, the resolution is something that can only be pushed so far because computers are only so powerful. And
I don't think that in itself is a particularly like a huge deal. It's definitely a big deal for anything that requires like a lot of text content, a lot of reading. But the people were having compelling gaming experiences on 320 by 200 screens.
yeah,
Like
definitely. And
everybody can scale their experiences to what's around, and that in itself, to me, doesn't seem like a significant limitation, even though that's what a lot of people are fixating on.
For me, I'm not worried about it at all. But some people who might put on the headset and expect to be transported into a world exactly like theirs, but not, they're not going to experience that. In computers, the requirements for a Vive or many other devices right now are just so high, even just for the hardware you have to have in your computer. And if they made like the screens any higher resolution, that would push it to where almost nobody would be able to buy them.
But the resolution, I mean, again, it all comes down to what you're used to. I mean, I had my first VR experience in the 90s, and that was very low res. When I got my hands on the DK1 of Oculus's offering, I was like, yeah, okay, so the resolution's finally gotten to a point where it's kind of usable. But the consumer versions of both the Rift and the Vive are like so far beyond that resolution-wise.
Yes, a huge
that
difference.
kind of thing doesn't seem an issue either.
Well, still something I'm looking forward to. Just need to have that Linux support on the Vive.
Yes, please. I need better hardware.
I think a lot of it's going to come down to what game you're running as well.
Well, sure. If you're playing,
If you're playing Winter's Wake,
yeah, Winter's Wake is a good example. I mean, that's not going to take very much processing power. That's an excellent example, and that's going to be completely different from if Elite Dangerous gets ported and you try playing that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think as well it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this kind of hardware intensive or resource intensive overheads of being able to render things effectively twice per frame. It's going to be interesting to see if this leads to engine developers and focusing more on optimizing their renderers.
Unreal Engine was showing off some. I saw an image, it was a GIF, but it was rendering at the same time in both eyes.
Yeah.
Like iterating on both eyes at the same time, which is something that you normally can't do. So I don't know what kind of fancy tricks they're doing, but that should definitely help with hardware utilization and latencies between frames.
So, thanks everybody for joining us on this episode of SteamLUG Cast. Don't forget, we are available for your feedback via email cast@steamlug.org, always in IRC, irc.freenode.net, #SteamLUG, Twitter @SteamLUG, Google+, plus SteamLUG, and YouTube, the channel SteamLUG.
Woo!
SteamLUG.
SteamLUG!
Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
See ya, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye. Oh, that's an anonymous wolf. I was like, why is there an anonymous Batman?
That is not a wolf. This is not remotely how wolves look like.
I think it's Batman. It's just captioned wrong. Sorry, I'm totally distracted by Google's snoopervision.
Aaron Meckler of Knockout Games. Melcher. Aaron Melcher.
I think
of
it's
Knockout
Melcher.
Games.
I don't know.
No, that
I called
sounds
him
right.
Melcher when he came on the show last, so I hope I
And
was
he
right.
didn't complain.
Good enough.
That's right. That's his name now, regardless.